Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we're going to preview our 2023 plan for the old garden. Let's get going. Well, last year from the old garden, we got an abundance of cucumbers and onions and not a whole lot else. I don't plan on talking a whole lot about the 2022 year in the old garden. I'll put a link right up here where we reviewed the production and mistakes and that sort of stuff. I bring it up here from the beginning just because I wanted to address the elephant in the room before we went too much further. Last year, our cucumbers did fantastic, but because of the way that we trellised our cucumbers last year, it ended up kind of inhibiting the growth of anything else. So let's go ahead and just start with addressing that. So our answer for the cucumbers this year is going to be to put them in the western bed, or the bottom row as we call it here in the top garden. The idea is that the sun moves from over here, from the east all over to the west, and in the summertime, of course, it's much higher in the sky. So the issue last year was that, of course, the big tall trellises were blocking out the rows behind them. The cucumbers thrived, the onions did well because they came out so early, and other than that, nothing else did well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just do this entire row instead of a half a row like we did last year. We'll put a little break in the middle of it, but we'll do our pickling cucumbers on the north end, which is right down here, and our slicing cucumbers will be there on the back end. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these and we're gonna take this bed and split it in half, and then halfway in the back half, if that makes sense, that's where we'll put our trellises. And that way it gives us here in the front area, we want to go ahead and grow a bunch of deal. We're also gonna put in a few pollinators, especially marigolds and a few other things. So in the middle row of the old garden, we are going to grow sweet potatoes once more. We are also going to take half of it and grow our potatoes in this bed this year. So on the south end of the bed last year, we grew sweet potatoes and they did quite well. We made several mistakes since it was our first time. I think we've got all those ironed out. It was more of a novelty last year just to see if we could grow them. We proved that we did, and now this year the idea is to try to get more of them. So what we're gonna do, again, we'll grow them on the south side of the bed, and we will let the sweet potatoes, as the summer grows along, grow from the south end into the north end of the bed. We should have those sweet potatoes planted around the 1st of May, and they'll be ready to pull out of the garden more than likely at the end of August or early September. So since the sweet potatoes are going to be at the southern end, about halfway up we're going to start planting our regular potatoes. So the reason this will work, in my mind anyway, is that the first round of potatoes, there'll be 18 of them. We're going to put tomato cages around them to kind of mark their spot. So what we plan on doing is, first week of March, we will put in our 18 potatoes. If I've done the math correctly, those 18 potatoes should be coming out at the end of June, which means that since the sweet potatoes are going down there in May, they shouldn't have a chance to work their way this way until probably midway through June or early July, or that's the hope anyway. The second round of potatoes won't go in until mid-September. So if everything works out correctly, then the sweet potatoes should come out the beginning of September, give us a couple weeks to let the ground settle, and then we'll put in 18 more potatoes on the front side, and those potatoes should come out end of November or early December. Beans loves these gardens when the sun is out. Let's talk a little bit here about this top row. It's going to probably be the most diverse row that we're going to have. We'll start by talking about the trellis here. This is where we're going to grow one of my all-time favorites in the garden. It's going to be our Sweet Million cherry tomatoes. Last year, those things got really tall. We got a ton of tomatoes off of them. So the goal this year is going to be to plant them. We're going to have 4 plants right here on the front side of this trellis, and we'll let the cherry tomatoes grow over the top and hopefully reach the other side. If not, that's no big deal, but we just want to give it something to hold on to and sort of allow it a bit more room to grow this year, because we got a bunch of them last year. Anyway, and then right here on the front side of our cherry tomatoes, we are going to put basil plants. Now again, we grew basil with our tomatoes last year and it really cut down on the pest issues, so we're hoping that that replicates itself this year. So on the other side of the trellis system with the tomatoes and basil, we're going to put a large patch of onions. Now we grew way too many onions last year. We loved everything about it, but it took up too much of our garden space, and because we were kind of novices with the onions, we kind of overcrowded them, and I think we understand now how to spread them out and get a bigger bang for our buck, if you will, when it comes to space. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to put about probably between 50 and 80 onions right on the other side of the basil and tomatoes. Now following the onions, we're going to go ahead and put in some marigolds, and we're going to add a couple other pollinators just to sort of bring in some beneficial insects. The advantage to having the onions between the pollinators and the tomatoes is the onions will come out probably in mid-June, and once those come out, it'll allow the pollinators and the tomatoes, the plants that really thrive in the heat, it's going to give them the room that the onions vacated to sort of stretch their legs, if you will. Now on the other side of those pollinators, we're going to use that area as another area to grow dill. Now we use a lot of dill here on the homestead, and so what we're hoping to do is put enough in here, and then we're going to add some to in front of the cucumbers as well, if I forgot to mention that. And we're hoping between those two areas we'll grow enough dill this year to be able to do all of our okra and cucumbers that we pull from the plants here on the homestead. Now, if there is any room, depending on how much room we need for the deal at the end of it, what we're going to do is this year, just like last year, we're going to use bush beans to fill in any holes that we have. So let's say, for example, June rolls around and where we take our onions from, it looks like we're going to have a little extra room. We'll just plug in bush beans there. You know, you can do I don't know, 2-3 square foot of bush beans, and that'll give you several meals throughout the course of the summer and fall. So let's take just a moment here to address the perimeter of the garden. This is something I've spent a lot of time researching over the fall and winter, and as time goes along, we're going to try to improve the perimeter defenses to our gardens. Right now we have right through here, it's difficult to see with the shaded, but we have right through here honeysuckle. It's a coral honeysuckle that our bees and other insects really enjoy. It brings in a lot of predatory insects that'll help hopefully keep the squash bugs down out of the cucumbers, and it'll help protect our cherry tomatoes as well. Now this bed here, anybody who watches the channel knows we have had so many different things in here and nothing has really worked. So this year we have decided we are going to use this for nothing but pollinators. We're just going to throw in some alyssum, we'll throw in some baby's breath, probably some marigolds. I think Leslie's even started to add some bulbs just to see how they do, and if so, we might increase some of those in there as well. Then next to that, we have this, I don't know, it's a small little bed that Leslie put in with these little pavers. It's got a lot of perennial stuff, and right now you can't really tell because it's February, but in here there are some bulb plants. We have a lot of mint that comes up down here. There are also cone flowers that come back yearly, and this rosemary right here, it's really fragrant. Right now it's dead because of the winter we've had, but it will come back in the springtime. And then over here we'll use this. We will probably try to plant a squash in that bucket this year. We'll come around, and then over here are just more pollinators. We have a butterfly bush and some other things. Again, the idea of the perimeter that we're trying to create around each of our gardens, the whole idea of it is not necessarily to grow food, but to bring in insects that are beneficial to help protect the food that's grown within. And then we'll finish off the little tour here of our perimeter with these two boxes right here. The larger box, anybody familiar with our videos from last year know, this is where Leslie grows our loofahs, and she grew a bunch of loofahs last year. We saved a lot of the seeds, and we anticipate having just as many this year as we did last year. And then here in the front bed, this is just another place where Leslie likes to grow pollinators. Last year it was full of primrose and alyssum. Those seem to do really well with the combination of the potatoes, the cucumbers, and the tomatoes. We're hoping it brings in the beneficial insects that we need to protect those. Well, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell icon, because next week we are going to be previewing our 2023 plan for the top garden. As always, I appreciate everyone who stuck it out here till the end. I hope everyone takes care of themselves. Peace.